In a world where justice should be blind, one prosecutor's fight for fairness exposes the cracks in the system. Meet Cassandra Reed, a rising star in the legal world, determined to stand for what's right. But when she steps into Judge Warren's courtroom, she's met with something far more sinister than a tough legal challenge, a blatant display of racism from the bench itself. The tension builds as Cassandra refuses to back down, even when the odds seem stacked against her. Her unshakable resolve sends ripples through the legal community, sparking a battle that could change the way justice is served forever. What happens when a powerful voice meets an immovable force of prejudice, and how far will Cassandra go to make sure the truth prevails? Stay tuned, as this gripping story unfolds in a way that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about equality in the justice system. Cassandra's journey to that fateful courtroom began years ago, fueled by a deep desire to seek justice for those whose voices often go unheard. Growing up in a neighborhood where the system seemed more like an enemy than an ally, she promised herself she'd one day use the law to level the playing field. Her reputation as a fearless prosecutor had earned her respect, but it had also made her a target for those unwilling to let go of their outdated power structures. Judge Warren was one of them, a man whose courtroom decisions had long raised quiet concerns, but no one had dared to challenge him. Cassandra didn't expect her latest case, involving a high-profile corporate fraud, to take such a personal turn. From the moment she entered his courtroom, the tension was palpable. His dismissive tone and thinly veiled comments weren't just unprofessional, they were a direct attack on her identity. Cassandra stayed calm, but inside, she felt the weight of Judge Warren's hostility pressing down on her. Every ruling he made seemed designed to undermine her case. Key evidence was dismissed without a second glance, and witnesses she had spent weeks preparing were cut off mid-testimony. Yet, it wasn't just his decisions, it was the way he spoke to her. His condescending tone, the subtle smirks, and the occasional veiled remark about knowing her place left no doubt about what she was up against. But Cassandra wasn't alone in the room. The jury noticed. The defense attorneys noticed. Even the spectators in the gallery couldn't ignore the unspoken tension. Outside the courtroom, whispers began circulating among reporters and legal experts. Was this a case of judicial bias? Or was it something even deeper, an institutional problem hiding in plain sight? Meanwhile, Cassandra's resolve only grew stronger. She knew this wasn't just about her case anymore. It was about every person who had ever been silenced or dismissed because of who they were. She had a choice: fight back within the confines of the law or risk everything by calling out the system itself. And as each day in court passed, the stakes only got higher. The courtroom grew heavier with each passing day, the air thick with unspoken tension. Cassandra continued to present her case with precision, her arguments sharp and unwavering, but Judge Warren's interruptions were relentless. Every time she made progress, he found a way to undercut her. The jury looked increasingly uneasy, and even the defense attorneys exchanged glances, seemingly surprised by the blatant hostility. Then came the breaking point. During a critical cross-examination, Cassandra questioned a witness whose testimony could solidify her case. As she pressed for answers, Judge Warren interrupted again, cutting her off mid-sentence. His voice boomed as he accused her of being out of line, his words dripping with disdain. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of his words echoing louder than any gavel. But Cassandra didn't flinch. She stood tall, her voice calm but resolute. "Your Honor, I request a moment in chambers to address these disruptions." The tension was electric as the judge hesitated, clearly unprepared for her defiance. Gasps rippled through the room as he begrudgingly agreed, his face a mask of barely concealed fury. The walk to chambers felt like an eternity. Behind closed doors, Cassandra was about to confront not just a man, but the embodiment of a system that had overlooked injustice for far too long. The moment of reckoning was at hand, and everyone in that courtroom knew they were on the brink of something that could change everything. Inside the judge's chambers, Cassandra stood firm, her eyes locked on Judge Warren's. The tension was palpable, each second stretching into eternity as she calmly outlined her concerns about his conduct in the courtroom. But instead of addressing her grievances, the judge leaned back in his chair with a smug smile. "You really think you can intimidate me?" he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "You may have the courtroom's attention now, Ms. Reed, but don't forget, this is *my* court." Cassandra's heart pounded, but she didn't waver. Before she could respond, the door opened abruptly, and the court clerk entered, visibly nervous. "Your Honor, we've received a formal complaint regarding bias in this case," she said, handing him a sealed envelope. Judge Warren's expression darkened as he read the letter, his jaw tightening with every word. For a moment, Cassandra thought she had the upper hand, but then the twist hit. The judge, visibly rattled, tossed the letter aside and leaned forward. "If you want to play games, I'll show you how the system really works," he said. "You're not just fighting me, you're up against forces you don't even understand." The words sent a chill down Cassandra's spine. What do you mean by that? Was this case just the surface of something much deeper and far more insidious? Suddenly, the stakes felt even higher, and the lines between right and wrong, personal and systemic, blurred in a way Cassandra hadn't anticipated. She realized she wasn't just standing up to a biased judge. She might be unraveling a conspiracy that could shake the justice system to its core. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Cassandra returned, her steps steady despite the storm raging inside her. Judge Warren took his seat, his expression icy. But there was a shift in the air, something unspoken but impossible to ignore. The formal complaint had triggered an internal investigation, and word had spread. The gallery was packed, cameras discreetly capturing every moment. Cassandra resumed her case, laying out the final pieces of evidence with precision. Her voice was unwavering, but Judge Warren's interruptions persisted, his temper flaring more openly. Just when it seemed like he might derail the trial entirely, a stern voice echoed through the courtroom doors. "Your Honor, a word." All heads turned as a senior judicial officer entered, flanked by 2 legal auditors. The room fell silent as the officer handed Judge Warren a document. His face turned ashen as he read it, his composure cracking for the first time. "Due to credible allegations of misconduct," the officer announced, "Judge Warren is hereby removed from this trial, effective immediately." Gasps filled the room. Cassandra felt a rush of relief, but before she could process it, Judge Warren stood abruptly. "You think this changes anything?" He spat, his voice venomous. "I'm not the only one playing this game." The words hung in the air like a warning. Though the judge was escorted out, Cassandra realized his removal was just the beginning. The fight she'd ignited had exposed a deeper network of corruption, one that extended far beyond a single courtroom. As the jury delivered a guilty verdict for the defendant, justice felt bittersweet. Cassandra had won the case, but her battle against systemic injustice was far from over. She left the courthouse determined, because shaking the system was only the first step toward truly changing it. As Cassandra walked out of the courthouse, the cold air hit her face, but it felt refreshing, a reminder that change, no matter how small, was possible. Reporters swarmed, microphones and cameras aimed at her, asking how she felt about the trial's outcome. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "This case was never just about me. It's about making sure everyone is held accountable, no matter their position or power." Her words echoed beyond the steps of the courthouse, carried by headlines and whispers alike. In the days that followed, Judge Warren's removal sparked widespread investigations into judicial conduct, with others stepping forward to share their own stories. Cassandra knew this was only the beginning. The system she believed in could only change if people were brave enough to challenge it. Though the battle had tested her, it also reignited her purpose. Justice wasn't perfect, but she wasn't done fighting for it.